good morning, everyone. Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Georgia. Did you get your phone figured out there, Senator? No more rings this podcast episode?
No, maybe I'll do this. Yeah, I'll take it off. Okay. No,
How you doing?
well, it's good. I'm working on a combine right now because harvest is coming and it's coming fast. So,
Oh boy, so you ran inside.
yep, I did.
We will give everyone a second to get online here. Is it hot over there?
Not now, but it will be. Well, I don't know. Actually, the high today is in the mid 80s, so it's probably pretty nice.
Okay, but
Yeah.
so combine season starts soon. Are we gonna have an episode with you on the combine again? People have been kind of clamoring for that.
Well, we can. Yeah. If you want, whatever you say, you're the boss.
Oh, did you all hear that? I'm the
Yeah,
boss.
you're the boss. Absolutely.
All right, that sounds good. Um, so here's the deal. We're gonna do things a little backward this time because we have a guest with us. There are 106 days until the election at this moment on Monday, July 20th. So we are going to start with our guest, and then we'll do some headlines at the end to keep things interesting. Sound good, Senator?
Sounds great.
All
Yeah.
right, so we want to bring our guest in right now, and our guest, I'm going to put her in the middle. There we go. Our guest is Erin Covey from the Cook Political Report to get all kinds of nerdy, in the weeds political data with us. Thank you so much for being with us, Erin.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me on.
It's good to have you with us for sure. We get to finally talk to somebody who actually knows what's happening on the political landscape with certainty.
Well,
Well, is there ever anything with absolute certainty in this political landscape,
oh,
Erin?
no. No, unfortunately not.
Okay. So, let's start. I want to put the caveat out there. First of all, if everybody listening live has anything you want us to talk about or ask about or any specific races, I gave Erin the warning that that might happen and told her she can like say, "Hold on, let me get my notes out," because this is a lot to track. I can't even imagine because Erin specializes in the House, and all of the House races. So let me remind you, 435 races. That's a whole heck of a lot, Erin.
It is a lot. Unfortunately for the country, only a small number of those are actually competitive. So that does limit the scale of the races that I have to follow very closely. But we also do track the open seat. Anytime an incumbent faces a serious primary challenge, we cover that as well. So yes, it's not 435, but it's a lot.
Okay, so let's start with the Senate. I know you specialize in the House, but there are quite a few Senate seats to talk about, and I'm going to pull up this little. I'm not prepared, you guys. I thought I was prepared, and I'm not prepared. But I did take this screenshot from the New York Times because right now they're saying that in the Senate, New York Times reported this that the Republicans currently hold 53 seats, and Democrats need to flip 4 states while also defending what's considered their 2 most vulnerable seats, Michigan and Georgia. So let's just kind of talk broadly about the Senate races, if you wouldn't mind, Erin. Like,
Yeah.
what are you like? Is that a pretty good, accurate description? Are there any others that we should be following?
Yeah, that's an accurate description of the state of control in the Senate. We believe that Republicans are favored to hold the Senate still, but it's certainly quite competitive in a way that people did not think it was going to be at the beginning of the cycle. So I'll just run through our ratings. I think that's kind of the easiest way to
Yeah.
get a full sense of the Senate battleground map. So, like you said, the 2 seats that Democrats are defending that are the most in Georgia, where John Ossoff is up for reelection, and then in Michigan, where they have an open seat that they're defending because Senator Gary Peters is retiring. We have the Georgia Senate race rated lean Democrat, so we think Ossoff's the favorite there. So still competitive, but he has the edge. The Michigan seat, I would say, is the one that is most at risk of flipping that Democrats hold. We have that one rated a toss-up. Obviously, they have a big primary coming up in a few weeks that we can delve more into if y'all want, but that one is the most vulnerable seat that Democrats currently hold. They would need to hold Michigan plus flip 4 more seats in order to get a majority. So we believe that path, the first state that runs through is North Carolina, which we also have rated lean Democrats. So we think Democrats are favored to flip that seat, actually. It's open. It's where former Governor Roy Cooper is running there. And it looks like, polls have shown him with a pretty consistent edge. It has tightened a little bit over the last couple of months, as we would expect it would. This is certainly not going to be a blowout. It's North Carolina, but we do think he has an advantage there. So they have North Carolina, that's one. And then the next three seats are essentially Maine, Alaska, and Ohio. All three of those seats are rated toss-up. But there's complicating factors in all of them. On paper, Maine, held by Republican Susan Collins, of course, that should be the easiest seat to flip because it's a seat that leans blue typically. Kamala Harris won it by several points in 2024, but of course, Susan Collins has a long history of winning over a lot of cross-party support. And Democrats have had their own, primary debacle. There's currently
To say the least.
looks
To
like
say the least.
yeah, to say the least, it's going to be Troy Jackson as the Senate nominee, it appears. But that one, is still quite like Collins still has like quite a good chance at holding on despite all of the environmental factors going against her. So then the other two states that you have is Alaska and Ohio. These are both states that Trump won by double digits in 2024. So these are typically Republican leaning seats, particularly in a more neutral political environment. But because obviously, Democratic enthusiasm is a lot higher than Republican enthusiasm right now, as you would expect in a midterm cycle for the party in power. Democrats do have a good shot at winning both of those. And they also have really strong recruits. In Ohio, they have, of course, former Senator Sherrod Brown, who is running again against John Husted. And then in Alaska, they have former Congresswoman Mary Peltola, who just narrowly lost re-election in 2024. She represented the whole state in her House seat because Alaska is such a small state population-wise, and now she's running for the Senate against Dan Sullivan. So those are the ones we have rated a toss-up. Then you kind of shift over into the more Republican-leaning states, and that includes Iowa, Texas, Nebraska. These are still competitive, but there are states where we believe Republicans have an advantage still.
So let's make you get out your notepad. Let's start with Michigan.
Yeah.
They've got a primary, as you pointed out, coming up here in a few weeks. It's a toss-up. Does it matter who wins that primary?
I think it does. It's a two-way race between Abdul El-Sayed, who ran for governor. He's, of course, backed by the progressive wing of the party. It's a very charismatic candidate who has really picked up a lot of steam. And then you have Haley Stevens, a congresswoman from the suburbs of Detroit, who is running with the backing of kind of the quote-unquote Democratic establishment. And so this is really the main race that is the test of, one, can an establishment candidate win a Democratic primary that is increasingly frustrated with the establishment, and they're frustrated with Democratic leadership in Congress right now, feel like they're not doing enough. And a lot of that is not necessarily ideological, but it does mean that someone like El-Sayed, who has been running against the system, has more of an appeal with that base right now. But at the same time, because he is a lot more progressive than Stevens, there are questions about whether or not he would be able to win over some of the more moderate and independent folks that he'll need to win a Senate seat in Michigan. I think because this is a cycle that favors Democrats, either of them, this is still going to be a competitive race no matter who gets through the primary. And I think either have a good shot at winning, but I think it's a little bit easier with Stevens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I was anticipating you were going to say that answer. I will tell you that you talked about El-Sayed being a very charismatic candidate that the progressives are pushing. Isn't that kind of how you would describe Bodnar?
I think so. Yeah. So I guess there's a difference.
We're not comparing those two, though. They're not.
Don't need to go any further. That's clear enough. I think part of the problem, and this is me talking, and it's probably going to piss off a lot of people, but I don't
Oh
really.
boy.
But the truth is part of the problem is winning the primary doesn't win you a goddamn thing. If you can't win the general, you should lose the primary. And I've seen it happen time and time again, including when I was DSCC chair, where they got the most liberal candidate to win the primary and everybody was doing backflips and wow, this is great. And then they get their ass mopped in the general. Okay. And so, that's it. So, but
we are seeing that trend, Senator. We are and Erin
we're seeing a trend.
Whip on this. We're seeing that trend.
My good friend Michael Bennett got beat for a governor's race in Colorado because he was not liberal enough, for Christ's sakes. At least that's the word I got. And so part of this is, and I'm sure the guy that beat him is going to win the general in Colorado. But the truth is, if we lose Michigan, it is political malpractice. I'm going to tell you, we being the Democrats. So can I, do you have anything on Maritza? Do you have anything on Michigan?
No, you're on a roll. If I feel bad for Erin. Here
So,
we go.
so let's talk about Maine.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
guys,
look,
the nominee's name is what is it?
Troy Jackson.
Troy Jackson. Does he come out of the legislature or where's he come from?
Yes, so he comes out of the legislature. He was the state Senate majority leader.
Gotcha.
He's been around a very long time. He was kind of best known in the 90s. He helped lead a blockade of loggers at the Canadian border. So he has been a huge fixture of kind of the Maine labor movement
Mm,
for a long time, and has been in office for a long time as well in
Okay.
the legislature. He was running for governor, if you'll remember earlier this cycle. He was backed by Bernie Sanders in the governor's race. So he's a bit more on the progressive side, but I would say that's mostly economically. He doesn't code as particularly
mhm.
progressive necessarily.
I got
And
you.
just a
I
Go ahead.
reminder for
So
our
he was one of the four that ran for governor.
He was. He was one of the 4 that ran for governor, which, as we know, was a very close primary. So he comes in with, like, a base of support. Um, I think what's difficult for him, though, is because he was one of the more progressive candidates in that gubernatorial primary, he rallied with Graham Plattner.
mm,
Plattner had given him kind of a pseudo endorsement. So I think the question is, can Republicans just tie him to Plattner? And does that affect his ability to win that race as well? He's also, I mean, Plattner obviously was very charismatic and drew huge crowds because of that talent. And Jackson has been around a long time, but he doesn't have that level of charisma that Plattner brought. So, I think there's open questions about how that translates when he's running in a high-profile Senate race, which is very different from a governor's race in Maine.
Does
and let's just
Jackson have any tattoos?
Good question. I don't believe so. But they'll have to work on that. I think that'd be, between Plattner and Jared Golden, clearly a winning formula.
just a reminder for our listeners. I mean, I think everybody who listens to our show stays up to date on this, but Graham Plattner, of course, was the primary winner in Maine, seen as, the front runner to take on Senator Susan Collins, and he dropped out of the race after some very serious accusations of sexual assault and other accusations came forward about him. So that is definitely one. I mean, I know a lot of Democrats are really frustrated, especially in that race, because that was seen kind of as the easy one, right? The
Yeah.
easy one to flip.
Well, I think
Easier.
from the beginning, Democrats have been like, this is Susan Collins. Obviously, the environment is good for us. The fundamentals favor us in Maine, but we're not going to take it for granted. I mean, to bring you back to 2020, every poll in that general election matchup between Susan Collins and her Democratic opponent, Sarah Gideon, had Collins down, and she still won by several points. So I think Democrats have never taken this race, this pickup for granted. I think I would say from the beginning, North Carolina has actually been seen as a more feasible pickup opportunity, slightly ahead of Maine. But I do think, yes, obviously this becomes a lot more complicated and more difficult for Democrats because of the whole Plattner situation. And now they're coming in, at the last minute. They're having to pick a candidate who's going to have to raise a lot of money within a short period of time. And yeah, could be tarnished by the Plattner scandal and his association with him.
Policies aside, in Ohio is the big difference here is that Trump's not on the ticket.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, both Ohio and Alaska, if
Mm.
this was a presidential cycle, if Trump was running, if he was on the ticket, those would definitely still be Republican leaning
Mm.
seats, I would think.
I,
I mean,
Okay.
even Sherrod Brown could not hold his seat with Trump on the ticket in 2024.
no shit. I noticed that.
I know somebody else like that.
Yeah, I do. And by the way, when you were talking about Susan Collins polling, I was saying the same thing myself in 24. Unfortunately, my polling was right. God damn. I'll tell you.
Ooh,
We were down and we lost. At any rate, um, Can we talk about Texas for just a second?
Yeah,
Oh
that's what
yeah,
I wanna ask. Is this the year
Well,
that Devils might actually have a chance?
yeah,
Is that your
absolutely. Yeah. I
question?
mean, this is their best shot since 2018. And in some ways, when you look at like Paxton is much more burdened by scandal than Cruz was, who was, a polarizing figure. But I think it's clear that Paxton is a much weaker nominee for Republicans. And James Talarico has been like the top fundraiser among Democratic Senate candidates, and has a huge financial advantage over Paxton, which is really important in a state like Texas. And I think what has happened in previous cycles is, Democrats get very excited about the potential to flip Texas, which is a bit of a white whale for them, really
Mhm.
since Beto came so close. But then it's so expensive and it takes so much money to run a campaign there where you have four major media markets. And it becomes a bit of a distraction, I think, from other potentially more winnable
yep,
seats. But this cycle is real. It's certainly a competitive race. I mean, the polling has shown that the two of them are effectively tied. Some polling shows Talarico up. We have this one still rated lean Republican because it is still a seat that Trump won by like 14 points in
yep.
2024. So it's still going to be a tough state. But I do think that Democrats certainly have their best shot since 2018.
Have you guys, in your assessment, when you say Trump won Texas by 14, which is significant, but if you take a look at some of the races that have happened since the election in 2024,
Yeah.
that 14-point margin is pretty much erased across the board, damn near in every state.
It is, yes. I mean, we've seen, like in special elections, Democrats have overperformed Kamala Harris's margin by an average of about 13 points, I believe. I haven't checked super recently, but I believe that's
We'll take that number. We'll take that number. That's fine.
yeah. So it's been, but of course, those are very low turnout races. I think
Right.
obviously Democratic enthusiasm and turnout is going to be disproportionately high this cycle, but I don't think that the differentiation is not going to be quite as dramatic as it is in those special elections. So I think what it means is that those seats are winnable. It doesn't mean that they will win them, though. You still need the right combination of candidates, and issues to go their way.
It seems to me in Texas that the wild card is the Hispanic vote. Do you have any insight on the Hispanic vote about what they're going to do this election cycle?
It's a huge wild card. I mean, the Hispanic vote in Texas, it kind of varies depending on what part of Texas you're talking about. In South Texas, particularly the Rio Grande Valley, this is a part of the state that really since 2018 has been trending towards Republicans.
Mhm.
The peak of Democratic's performance there was really Hillary Clinton in 2016, and it's been going downhill for them since then. The more dramatic swing was between 2020 and 2024, of course, but I think South Texas is the toughest part of the state as far as trend lines go. What is different, though, now is that among Hispanic voters, including those in South Texas, there has been significant backlash to Trump's policies among those who voted for him in 2024. If you look at polling, focus group data, special election results, the governor's race results, we can all see that there has been reversion among Hispanic voters. But in the some parts of the like Hispanic voters in South Texas tend to be a bit more conservative than like Hispanic voters who live in the urban centers of Texas, as you might expect. But yes, that is going to be a crucial part. And I mean, I think that is Talarico's strength with them was a part of the reason that he won the primary. And his base is kind of made up of younger voters and Latino voters, I would say. And so having him is certainly a help with winning over that
And I
demographic.
think he also has the religious component too. I mean, he's so strong in his Christian faith, and I wonder how that will play into pulling some folks over who maybe
Yeah.
haven't felt that kind of religious strength from other past Democratic candidates.
Yeah, I mean, though it's still, I think, a bit of an open question. On the one hand, he has because he's a seminarian, he's studying to become a pastor, and he can communicate in the language that is more familiar to a lot of
Yeah.
religious conservative voters in Texas. At the same time, though, he has a history of taking like quite progressive positions on
Right.
other issues as well that could be alienating to a lot of those same voters. So we'll see which wins out at the end. But of course, he doesn't need to win over a huge segment of
You,
that.
Maurice, I've noticed for somebody who claims not to know a hell of a lot about the Senate and is focused on the House, she knows quite a bit about the
This is I was sitting here thinking the same thing, like, okay, Erin's like, "Oh, I'm really more dialed into the House," and I'm sitting hearing you analyze the Senate races, like, "Oh my gosh,
Senate.
how much do we possibly know about the House if you know this much about the Senate?" This
The
is
problem
wild.
is you can't the Senate you have to know if you're covering the House because all those races affect how that out.
Right.
No, that's a good
You.
point.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what about Mr. Turek in Iowa?
Yeah, we have that one rated the same level of competitiveness as Texas. And what Iowa has that Texas doesn't have is a much smaller media market. So it doesn't take the same amount of cash to win a race in Iowa as it does in Texas. So I think in some ways there are some Democrats that I talk to who are a lot more bullish on Iowa than Texas for that reason. And I think Iowa is a little bit unique this cycle because you have a very competitive governor's race happening at the
Right.
same time. Rob Sand, the state auditor, who is like the last Democrat who has been able to win statewide races in Iowa as the state has really trended towards Republicans. He's running for governor. We have that race rated as a toss up. But I would not be surprised at all if he wins. And the energy that he then brings to the Democratic turnout is a huge help for all these other candidates, including the Josh Turek and the Democratic candidates running for House. But I do think, yeah, Turek has a really compelling story and has a lot of strong supporters on his side. He had a competitive primary that he managed to get through without too much trouble. Eventually, I think that he hasn't raised quite as much money as some of the other Democratic candidates running in Senate races, so that may be his weakness. And then his opponent is Ashley Hinson, who is a Republican congresswoman from the northeast corner of the state. And she is, I think has long been kind of seen as a rising star by Republicans in Iowa, and I think will run a strong campaign. So he has, as opposed to like in Texas, he has a stronger Republican opponent, but in some ways, it's an easier state to see becoming competitive than Texas.
Yeah, and I can also say this that I always see Iowa as a farm state, an agricultural state. Now it's got its population centers, but the truth is, if that lady who's in the House endorsed all this crap that this administration has put on tariffs and trade policy, she
Yeah.
is absolutely vulnerable. And if they don't take advantage of that, they're making a huge mistake. So,
Okay. Can I
Marisa,
ask the next question? May I ask the next question?
you can.
Okay. I wanna know about the independent candidates. So this is a big, 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 uh, heated talking point in Montana for sure, but we also have Dan Osborne in Nebraska. So what do you think? Like, let's talk about the independent path just for a second, and if you think that we'll see any independents win the Senate.
Yeah, it's
Besides Bernie and Angus, go ahead.
Okay.
yes, besides those two. I mean, the big question for me in Montana is whether or not the independent who's running there, Seth Bodnar, is able to have a clear field. Because currently there's a Democratic candidate
Right.
who won her primary who's also on the ticket. And so they are splitting the non-Republican vote in Montana, and that is a real issue for his path to victory. What Osborne has is in his favor is that the Democratic Senate nominee there is already, she's planning to drop out, and so he's going to have a clear field, which was the reason he was able to sneak up on Deb Fisher last cycle and came just like 6 points away. And I think he has, in some ways, the environmentally, it's better for him. I think he faces a stronger opponent this cycle in Pete Ricketts, who is not going to take this race for granted and is very wealthy and can fund his own campaign. But he does have the fact that he has a clear field, and the independent in Montana does not. That I think makes Nebraska currently a better opportunity. But we'll see what happens. I'm curious. You're the one who has a lot more insight into this one, Senator. So I would love your take.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, I think that there are a lot of unhappy Republicans and a lot of unhappy Democrats in the state of Montana. 42% of the people in the state classify themselves as independent.
Yeah.
I can't remember the numbers on the Republicans. They're like 35 and 27 or something like that. But I think Bodnar is a far superior candidate. That's why I endorsed him, quite frankly. But the truth is that if the Democrats on the ballot, I don't think this is going to be a double digit race. And I think the Democrat may pull 10 to 15 points. If she does pull 10 to 15 points, and then we have a situation where we've basically endorsed Trump's policies in the state of Montana, which, by the way, have been very harmful to healthcare, to agriculture, to small Main Street businesses, and to working families. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see if people understand, as Rachel Maddow once told us on this very podcast, that if you're for a constitutional republic, you're on my team. I don't give a shit about any of the other issues. We'll see if that applies to Montana. Um, so, anything else on the independent candidates, Marisa? Because I've got to talk about Alaska for a second.
All right, let's talk about Alaska, and then we'll get to the
So,
House.
in 2008, we had a guy by the name of Mark Begich, a Democrat, beat an institution in Senator Stevens. Absolute beat an institution. It was a similar situation, very unpopular war that impacted President Bush's popularity and also had impacts downstream. Now, there's another Begich running. It's not a good Begich like Mark Begich was, but he's on the Republican side running. And my question is, are there any parallels between 2008 and now? Even though you were probably like a sixth grader in 2008.
Well,
Um, but the truth is that are there any parallels between 2008 and now? And is it the unpopularity of the war, of the trade policies, of healthcare, of those kind of things that are really making a difference in Alaska? Because I see Alaska as a deep red state.
Yeah. I was in 5th grade, in case you were wondering.
wait, really? Like, for real? Part of
I
me,
was
though,
pretty damn close. I
I
said six.
You did, you got it close.
I have a feeling, though, Erin was kind of into politics in 5th or 6th grade. I just have a feeling she,
I
was interested maybe in it to go into this field.
like, kind of, though, not on the same. I have some colleagues in this business who have been drawing maps since they were, like, 9 years old.
Yeah.
I was definitely not on that level. But I was, like, kind of tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there are parallels there. I think Alaska what makes Alaska unique, in addition to the fact that they do have a history of electing more independents to statewide office than most other states, is that they also now have this top 4 ranked choice voting system, where in the primary, every candidate, regardless of what party they're running under, they're all on the same ballot. And then the 4 who get the highest percentage of the vote will then run against each other in the general election. The reason that Mary Peltola was able to win that first race back in 2022 for the statewide House seat was that Republicans were divided between Nick Begich, who's now the congressman, and Sarah Palin, the former governor who was running for the House seat there. And so they split the Republican vote essentially in the general election, and she was able to come through. But that then gave her the opportunity as a member of the House to really establish her own brand. And, in 2024, she obviously lost re-election, but she still won. She did much better than Kamala Harris did in the state, who lost it by double digits. I would say Alaska, I wouldn't call it deep red. I would say it's a lighter shade of red with a strong independent streak.
Gotcha.
And I think folks there, it is so obviously geographically far from Washington and disconnected from national politics, that I think that gives a independent or a Democrat a better shot at winning there. I mean, even the governor's race is kind of competitive in Alaska right now. So you kind of have this interesting. The other dynamic is that, speaking of independents, you have Bill Hill, an independent who's running against Nick Begich right now, and so and he currently has a clear field to himself because the Democrat there just dropped out.
Whoa.
So I do think there is all 3 of those statewide races have the potential to be interesting. I think Peltola is in the strongest position because she comes in with an established brand that is separate from the National Democratic Party.
All right, you wanna move to the House, Senator?
Yeah. Can I ask the first question about the House?
Well, are you
This
gonna ask about a
is
specific race? Because I wanted to ask about kind of a
no,
broad. Okay,
no,
go ahead. Go
this is a
ahead.
monkey broad question. Okay, here it is, Erin. Give me your top 10 flips.
Oh, just look at our toss-up page.
Yeah, come
Um,
on.
we go to our ratings page.
But I don't have it in front of me, so tell me.
She's
I'll
gonna
pull it
pull
up.
up.
I'm gonna read them off for you.
Perfect.
And I'm going to say top, let's see. There's 18 races that we have rated toss-up right now. 14 of those are held by Republicans. So I would say that I can't really give a top 10 within that 18, but
Yeah.
they are all very competitive. And then, of course, you also have redistricting really scrambled a lot of lines here. And so for
Mhm.
Republicans, they have some pickup opportunities in places like North Carolina, and Florida and Ohio that they would not have had if they hadn't redrawn those maps in a way that favors them. So those are the ones that they're most favored to win. On the Democratic side, I would say the most likely to flip, um, setting aside, so they're going to flip a couple in California just because they're now deep blue seats because Democrats gerrymandered that state as well.
Mhm.
So you have the easy ones there. And then you have two open seats that are held by Republicans, Darrell Issa's seat, California 48, and Don Bacon's seat, Nebraska 2. Those are the next two best flip opportunities. And then you have a bunch of Republican members who are sitting in toss-up races, and that includes folks like Juan Ciscomani in Arizona, David Valadao in California, Gabe Evans in Colorado, Zach Nunn in Iowa, Tom Kaine Jr. in New Jersey, Mike Lawler in New York 17. I mean, I can just run through other
Yeah.
names, but I think at this point, all these folks are quite vulnerable. I don't have enough individual polling in all these places to say which ones are more vulnerable at this point. But I mean, top lines on the House is that Democrats are definitely favored to win it, but they're probably not going to pick up more than like 15 seats. That would be an amazing night for them just because of the way that
Okay.
the House is sorted now.
Okay, so this is the kind of the question. So I have the map up from the New York Times. It says there's 37 races to watch, and the magic number is 218
Yes.
to win the majority in the House. So Democrats, according to the Times analysis, would need victories in 13 of the 18 races that Cook rates as toss-ups. And in order for Republicans to stay in power, they need to win 6 of the toss-up races plus all the ones that lean in their favor. So, Erin, you wrote this piece last week, and it says that the Democrats are, of course, in a strong position to take the House, but it's not a foregone conclusion here. A lot of people think it is. Ours still have a path. Walk us through that. What do we need to be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, in large part, the reason that Republicans have a path is through redistricting. They redrew several of their maps this cycle. Of course, Democrats were able to retaliate in California, and they also got a more favorable map in Utah. But aside from that, all of the states that were redrawn largely favor Republicans to varying degrees. And so the median House district is no longer a seat that Trump won by maybe like 2 points. It's now a seat that he won by like 5 points. And so Democrats, if they're going to win the House, they are going to have to win over quite a few seats that Trump won in 2024, which is different than in 2018, where you had a lot of Republicans who were sitting in seats that Hillary Clinton had carried that cycle. So they just have a smaller battleground of winnable seats at this point. But yes, I mean, I guess what I will say historically, if you look at our toss up ratings, typically in a midterm cycle, the party that's out of power sweeps most of those races.
Right.
So if Democrats are winning a decent majority of the toss up races, they have the House, but only barely. And those ratings will change as we get closer to the election. I imagine that things will be different by the time. I mean, if you go back, you can look at our archived race ratings from like 2018. We made a lot of changes between
Yeah.
July of 2018 and November 2018 because we don't. The reason that we make changes that late is because we don't have a ton of individual polling on these races until it's like just now starting this summer.
Well, I have
So
so
we'll
many
see which
questions
ones
about
move.
that. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you sorry to cut you off
No, go
mid-sentence.
ahead.
Okay, so you just changed, race ratings for what, 6
Yes.
races? Um, and the 5 House races all shifted downward recently for Republicans, North Carolina 11, Iowa 2, Ohio Alabama 2, Michigan 4. And so, like, what goes into that? Do you do think other races will change before November? So what goes into that? How do you make those predictions? How do you decide, okay, we're going to change this race rating?
Yeah. So I guess at the beginning of the cycle, when we set these ratings, they are largely because this is the only information we have about them based on historical election results. And so we're looking at how did obviously the last House race go but also how did the presidential race look in all of these places? How did other statewide races play out in all of these districts? Because unlike in the Senate, in the House, you are kind of beholden to what the national party looks like in your district, because a lot of people just don't know a lot about their House members. And so they're just looking at the party ID beside your name. So it's harder as a House member to establish your own brand and overcome the partisan lean of your district. The closer we get to November, though, the more information we have about like who the party nominees are. So primaries results impact a lot of our race ratings. And then we actually get more polling that shows, okay, so in the races that are in the realm of competitive, which party actually does have the edge. And so we're looking at who the nominee is. We're looking at how much money they're raising, how much money their opponent is raising. We're looking at where the super PACs are placing ad reservations. And that gives us a sense of like, where do they believe the most competitive races are? And then we talk to the campaigns, to the PACs, and to the party committees, and they share internal polling with us as well that helps inform these decisions. Because with the House, unfortunately, there's not a lot of public district level polling. So what changes the closer we get to the election is we get more polling. Essentially, we get more fundraising information, and we have a better sense of like who these candidates are, how tested are they. We know a lot more about them than we do at
And
the beginning of the cycle.
somebody wrote me this morning because they knew you were coming on, and they said, "But like the polls get it wrong. The polls have gotten it so wrong before. So like, what do you make of that? And do you think people are honest with pollsters anymore?" That's another thing that someone brought up to me. Like, I don't even think people tell the truth when they do these polls.
Well, I mean, pollsters have ways of screening for that, but look, I mean, I think it's always going to be a mixed bag, and a lot of it is poll by poll. Some pollsters are much better than others, and what I always say is don't look at one poll and put too much weight on that. Look at what the aggregate poll shows. There are good like websites like Nate Silver has a site, Silver Bulletin, 50+1, which is run by some of the folks who used to be at 538. They have polling averages that weight the pollsters based on their track record of getting things right or wrong. And they are able to kind of turn that into a average that gives you a good sense of where the race is at, I think. Polling isn't perfect, but it is still the best tool that we have for like measuring public opinion. And I think there are a lot of great pollsters who are doing good work. The other thing I'll say to that point is that in recent years, we have seen that the polling has been more off in presidential cycles than in midterm cycles. And the polling in 2022 was actually pretty accurate, I would say.
Okay.
Obviously, there's always going to be a range in which things could be wrong. There's the margin of error. And so if a poll says this candidate is up 2 points, that could be true, but the other candidate could also be up 2 points. That is within the margin of error there. So I think you have to. I think polling is still one of the best tools that we have, but it's obviously an imperfect tool, and we have to adjust which polls we look at, which ones we trust. As
Uh-oh, another phone call.
It is. I gotta take this one. I'll be back.
Oh, oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna just remove him till I see him come back. We'll just continue this. This is just a day in the life of the Grounded podcast when you're dealing with a former senator. Okay, Erin, I do want to talk before we kind of. Well, let me ask you this question because I asked you off screen, but I think it's interesting. Um, we look at all of these measures, right, and predictions and all, and now we have this weird whole thing with like Kalshi and prediction markets, which is
Yeah.
wild to me. But I asked you kind of to talk about the accuracy. Like you have all these race ratings. What has the accuracy been like as you look at those ratings compared to the actual results? I think we're back. I think I'm gonna add him back. So what does that look like in past cycles with these race ratings as far as like did they hold up?
Yeah, I mean, our race ratings go back to 1984. And for the vast majority of races, we have a very good track record of, forecasting which way they're going to go. And I think, with the forecasting process, it's not always easy to define what is an accurate and what is an inaccurate prediction. Like if a candidate wins re-election by 2 points, but their race was rated solid, is that inaccurate? I mean, they won, so it's not
Yeah.
inaccurate in that way, but probably should have been in a more competitive category. And the fact that we didn't pick up on that is a miss on our part. So it's a bit of a hard it's hard to measure it. There's some outside there's some folks who have done good analyses on track records.
Mhm.
I think in 2024, maybe I'll send it over and you can link to it. But there are folks who have like seen how we and our friends at the Crystal Ball and Inside Elections do on these on a race by race basis. In terms of the prediction marking component, what I will say with that is I think they are more accurate in the races where there is more information available to the public.
Mhm. Of
And with
course.
the house races, there tends to be less information available to the public. And so it can be a little bit more, they're also very sensitive to any news developments. And so it can be very reactive in a way that is not always accurate. Like I think, like I remember leading up into like the Texas Senate race, they had Talarico favored by a huge margin, which, he ended up winning by several points. But I would
Primary.
say that there are in other primaries, yeah, they have been incorrect in the past because it's a little bit too weighted in like the favor of conventional wisdom. And if there's not a lot of information out there, they can't pick up on like the individual shifts that are happening in the final weeks of the race. But it's something that we all have to contend with. There's also, of course, there's a lot of risk in terms of the way that like people can rig them in a way to favor their preferred candidates. And so
Mhm.
that's a real concern as well. And there's not, there's very few guardrails around that. And so I think that is, I tend to be quite skeptical of them. But they're certainly becoming more and more a part of the conversation.
So I know you spent days and days working on this because you knew you were coming on this podcast, but talk to me about Forced Egg, the House candidate running in House District 1, and Eisenhower, the independent running in House District 2.
In Montana.
Yes. Yeah. In the two Montana districts. So Montana's first district, that one I think definitely has a real potential to be competitive. I think Republicans are favored there. The Republican candidate is Erin Flint. It's an open seat because Ryan Zinke is not running for reelection there. This is one of those races where, typically when it's an open seat, we would say that gives the out party a stronger edge to Democrats in this case. But Zinke was such a polarizing figure. He underperformed Trump by several points in this district. Trump won this district by, I think, like 12 points in 2024. So it's definitely a Trump leaning seat. But Zinke did not do quite as well as he did. So I'm not sure how. I think the big question for me is how strong of a candidate is Erin Flint, the Republican nominee, in that seat. I think Forstack, is a good candidate who has a lot of, he has been able to sort of bridge this divide within the Democratic Party right now. He was backed
Mhm.
by Labor and by Bernie Sanders ahead of the primary. So he had credibility with progressives, but he doesn't really code as particularly progressive. And I think it's trying to, he's very much not in the same category as like some of the Democratic Socialist candidates who are running for
Right.
office in other places. So I do think he has the potential to appeal to some crossover voters, but he's going to need to win a decent chunk of voters who voted for Trump in 2024. So it's still a tough race for him. The second district, I have not been following as closely, to be honest.
Sure.
Is there a Democrat on the ballot there?
Kinda. Yeah, okay.
Kind of. Okay.
Yes, there is.
So that would be the question for me. If it's, if the independent manages to clear the field, so it's just him,
Yeah,
the Republican incumbent, then that could be interesting. But otherwise, that's, as you know, a much redder part of the state,
yeah,
like
it
the
is.
Yeah,
eastern side of the state for folks who aren't aware, and the first district's the western side.
yeah.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, well, I'll just say that Jim Messina
Right.
named Montana 1 as his dark horse that he's watching that he thinks
I
gonna.
think it's a good dark horse. I would say it's like a race that it's not a dark horse in the sense that I think Forstack has gotten quite a bit of national media attention.
Right.
and
Yes.
is has a very large social media following for a House candidate. So
Gotcha.
he's not like he's not like a sleeper candidate necessarily.
Do you
It is a good reach seat. It's a seat that isn't, Democrats have a shot at winning, but they're still the underdogs.
do you guys have sources that you go to within your state, people? For
We
instance,
do, yeah. I will say some states have better.
Anna, who's your
She's not gonna tell you that.
So
come on, come on, you gotta say it.
it's often the campaigns themselves or people who previously worked on campaigns in Montana. Some states we have
Is it Messina? Is it? You can say yes. Just
Listen,
nod your head.
listen.
Is it Messina?
Well, you're not gonna badger her. I'm here to protect you from this man, Erin. Don't badger
Well,
her. She's not gonna tell you.
I'm gonna have to go. I've got to go because I lose my help in a few hours.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll wrap this up.
But no, you don't need to wrap it up. You can continue because I think Erin is really, really, really good, and I think you're
Oh, sh
really, really, really good, and I really
Thank you.
appreciate you taking the time to talk about these races off the cuff with no pre-questions at all. You didn't know where the hell we were going with any of this stuff. And I will also tell you that I think Cook got every one of my races right. Uh, I think every one of them they got right, and every one of them were damn close, by the way.
Yeah.
But except for the last one, it wasn't so close. But at any rate,
Just hold on a second, Senator. We'll wrap up with Erin, and we'll wrap up our show. Can you do
okay,
that?
okay, no,
Erin, is there anything else we're missing or anything that you think people should be following that they're not? Like something that is kind of like a sleeper candidate that we should be tracking?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess what I would do is if you are curious which races are getting a lot of attention at the House level but might get more attention later, go to our race ratings page at cookpolitical.com and look at the likely Republican column where we currently have 14 Republican seats there. Those are the seats that if Democrats are having a really good night, they could win some of those.
Okay.
cool.
I'm gonna I will link that in our published piece here. And yeah, I love to get nerdy with this stuff. So thank you for getting nerdy with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks
Can
for
I,
having me on.
can I
Oh,
ask one more question? Will you commit to coming on again
Sure.
closer, closer to the election?
Happy to. Yes.
You said sure. Did you get
Yeah.
that?
okay. Good job. You didn't
That
totally
means it
badger
wasn't as painful as it normally would be with you, Maritza. So
with me. Yeah. 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 All right. Thank you so
Well,
much,
y'all are
Erin.
the media now, right?
What? What'd you
Y'all
say?
are the media now.
That's right. This is
Yeah.
the new landscape, the independent media. That's
Yeah.
right.
that's
That's
it.
right. Well, thank you so much, Erin. We appreciate you. We'll link to all of your fabulous reporting in our published piece here.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Okay.
you
Have a
very
great
much.
day. All right, Senator. I know you're trying to leave. I just wanted to go to. Do you have time for a couple headlines or no?
I do. Go ahead.
Okay.
Shoot.
Okay. So, we first of all, thank you to Erin. That was wonderful. It's always fascinating to do those deep dives as we're trying to like figure out what's going to happen in a few months. I will say though that we have some news regarding Iran. The Pentagon released the names of two service members killed in Jordan last week. First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, who's 25, Private Isabella Gonzalez, who is 19. Another service member was killed in northern Iraq on Saturday, and another soldier is still missing. Remains were found believed to be theirs, though. Now, just want to send our love to all of their families. We want to honor them, and I do want to show you what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say about this because she's not having it. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, put out "Godspeed Heroes. Their sacrifice only stiffens our resolve," and Marjorie Taylor Greene said, "Sacrifice? What the fuck are you talking about? They did not willingly sacrifice themselves. They were killed because of the war that you, Trump, and the admin are waging on behalf of a foreign country, Israel."
Yeah, well, as we said before, Marjorie Taylor isn't somebody that I had envisioned myself agreeing with. But the truth is, this was a war of choice, and it was a bad goddamn decision, and they better figure out how to get out of it. Because it's causing a lot of problems, both with people losing their lives and with our economy, and it ain't going to go away until they get it fixed. And they broke it, so they need to fix it.
And then my last, I will cut this short, but my last headline here is that Uh, the New York Times put this out. They're reporting that the Pentagon withheld dozens of U.S. military injuries in the war in Iran. And one military official says that, well, CENTCOM isn't required to release that information. And they basically go on to say that it would help Iran if they knew where to zero in on, where they were successful. At the same time, it seems a little bit like sugarcoating to me. I wanna know what your thoughts, knowing everything you know after serving on, the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee.
Well, the word bullshit comes to mind. I mean, the fact of the matter is this is about sugarcoating. It's not about letting people know what's successful and what isn't successful. They know exactly what's successful and not successful, as do we. And so it's not it is depriving the public of information, just like when you tell the press that they can't come in and give briefs from the military anymore. This is we were talking about the districts. What's the term? Making house districts.
Yeah. Redistricting,
We're talking
gerrymandering.
districting, the gerrymandering. How swampy can that be? No more swampy. I mean, it's absolutely swamp, swamp, swamp. The thing that the president was going to clean up, and now we've got a situation where the press can't even report on what our service members are doing. Once more, adding to the goddamn swamp. And we've got people that are dying, people that are injured, people that are never going to be the same because of what has happened here. And they ought to come clean. They ought to be honest. They ought to quit sugarcoating because that's exactly what they've been doing.
Okay, that we are going to cut this short. We have a John Tester who needs to get out and work on that combine while he still has some help. But we want to thank everybody for joining us. We want to thank Erin Covey from the Cook Political Report. We want to thank Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. All of you who joined us live and who listened on later. It all works because of you guys and this amazing community we've built. So thank you. Anything else, Senator?
I got nothing. And I don't even know what the hat is. I just grabbed it
Oh,
and
shoot.
on. I don't even know what it says. Something copter. I don't know what it is.
Can you take it off and look at it and tell me what it says? Something quadrocopter.com.
That's probably a helicopter that's got 4 spinners on it. That's my guess.
Well, that's I think that's a good
It's a drone.
that's
It's
a
this.
good guess. I have a
Yeah.
feeling. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate you, and we will chat again soon.
Tally ho.